It happens every single weekend. A betting favorite underperforms and loses. Isaac Dulgarian opened as a near 3-1 favorite in his bout with Yadier Del Valle last weekend at the Apex, but fell apart almost immediately after a takedown attempt in the opening seconds.
A lot of day one mistakes. I mean, you can even hear in the broadcast, what is this guy doing?
But he just doesn't understand why you ever let the hands go.
I gotta be honest here, that was a F- performance. It was absolute trap. If that's how you're gonna fight, there's other people more deserving.
A baffling and embarrassing loss, undoubtedly, but one that fans wouldn't normally think twice about 10 minutes later. This was an undercard fight for an Apex event being headlined by two guys that weren't even in the top 10 of their division, up against Game 7 of the World Series. But this seemingly innocuous and routine bout has set the entire fighting world on fire, and has sports bettors and books along with federal investigators scrambling to figure out why, right before the fight, there was a flood of suspicious bets for Del Valle to win in the first round. Americans wagered $150 billion on sports in 2024. And if they can't trust that the fights they're watching are real, the UFC has a major problem. Since the story broke, the pitchforks have been sharpened. Everyone is scrutinizing other questionable fights, referees' calls, judges' decisions, looking to cast the next stone. Who knew what? When did they know it? How widespread is the problem? Is someone pulling the strings? It is overwhelming, so let's parse through all that noise and create a concrete timeline of what exactly has happened in this situation so far, so we can better understand what we know and, more importantly, what we don't. On the morning of the card, IC360, the biggest and most well-known sports betting integrity watchdog in the world that works with essentially every major sports league and sports book that exists, contacted the UFC about the Dulgarian-Del Valle fight.
Probably about 1 o'clock that day, they reached out to us and they told us that there was some unusual action going on. So what we did was we called the fighter and his lawyer and said, what's going on? There's some weird betting action going on in your fight. Are you injured? Do you owe anybody money? Has anybody approached you? And the kid said, no, absolutely not. I'm going to kill this guy. And so we said, okay.
This version of events has been confirmed by Ariel Helwani, and Dulgarian's coach at Factory X, Mark Montoya, also confirmed that this conversation took place earlier in the day.
And, we had the conversation about allegations. He reassured me he wasn't involved. I have no reason not to believe him. We reassess like we would any time. And, we have some news. Let's verify whether this is true or not. He reassured me it wasn't.
The alarm bells were sounding for sportsbooks, many of whom are also clients of IC360 and gambling experts as well, like Ben Fox.
So Saturday morning, some sportsbooks I spoke with took large bets basically on Del Valle.
Who's the underdog?
Yep. Right. Nothing necessarily off about that. People have some sort of opinion. That's totally fine. But there are also kind of some on new accounts, some sharp accounts. They then had been dormant for a while. All of a sudden, they were also betting. A lot of bets as well going for just who's going to win in the first round. So that sets off some red flags. Some of those bets are reported to gaming and compliance. Some sports books close the fight then. That's it. Some keep it open.
Submission Radio talked with a man named Harry Mack, who is credited with breaking much of the news regarding this situation about how significant the bets were.
What precipitated, I guess, this becoming the problem it has is 5 bets that were placed at the Hard Rock retail basically pushed things over the edge. The final handle on the Dulgarian fight was $16 million. I really cannot contextualize how preposterous a $16 million handle on a fucking Apex prelim is.
After the bout took place, suspicion was immediate, pretty much the sport over.
Literally, the first thing we did was call the FBI.
In a rare instance, sportsbooks were offering refunds on the Dulgarian bout for those who did bet on it. The following morning, the Harry Mack I previously mentioned dropped some bombshell accusations in a post that saw 9 million views on Twitter, claiming that over 100 UFC fights had been flagged for abnormal betting patterns, and 2 other fighters from that same card as the Dulgarian-Del Valle fight. That same day, according to Ariel Helwani, Dulgarian was released from the UFC. He would also be let go from his team at Factory X.
We had a conversation on Sunday. It was real brief. Conversation was that he was cut from the UFC, and unfortunately there's an investigation that is being had And, ultimately that he's not part of this Factory X team because of everything going on. And that was ultimately the conversation.
Monday saw more bad news for Dulgarian and more developments. Unsurprisingly, Nevada decided to withhold Isaac's purse for the bout with no timeline on when it would be released. More interestingly, several fighters would come forward publicly to claim that they'd been approached to throw a fight, with nearly all of them later retracting their statement or claiming to be joking. The next day, however, Ariel Helwani confirmed that he's been contacted by fighters confirming these types of scenarios to be true.
I got a text last night. Hey man, I saw you talking about people getting approached to throw fights. Yeah, gamblers have approached me and I told them no. They offered me about 100K or so. Now that's someone who wanted to remain anonymous. In
an interview with TMZ that same day, Dana confirmed that the FBI was actively investigating the situation and that he'd spoken with them twice that day. They'd also been to UFC headquarters, confirmed. And that is everything that I feel comfortable confirming to be a part of the official timeline of events that have transpired in this situation so far. The things we pretty much absolutely know. Now let's talk about the information out there that's sitting on shakier ground. Some of the claims that this Harry Mack figure, who's broken a lot of the news being discussed about this situation, are harder to confirm. Is he a journalist? I don't think he would see himself that way, although he is acting in an investigative capacity. He wanted to reiterate that he's not traditional media when he posted Chael Sonnen's phone number on Twitter after they got into it over his reporting.
Doxing involves publicly disclosing private information about an individual on the internet, including details like addresses, phone numbers. Individuals may be subject to federal prosecution.
He works with a fight promotion in New York called VFL. Based on his post history, he seems to have been on this fight-fixing suspicion well prior to the Dulgarian bout and is a big fighter advocate. And while he absolutely deserves the credit for breaking a lot of the story that's come out, here's why some of his statements probably need other reliable sources verifying them. For instance, his claim that Jason Herzog fights are being audited by investigators. That is a claim about an actual specific person that I haven't been able to find verified by any other source. And while he said he was working to confirm that, it's a pretty bold claim to put out there publicly without confirmation. There's also direct refutation of some of the other details he's brought up. Both Dana and Ariel seemed to have confirmed that it was IC360 that tipped off the UFC about Dulgarian, not the FBI. Even people in the know in the betting world like Ben Fox got tipped off by a compliance agency that something was up with the Dulgarian fight that afternoon, well before the bout. So if sharps and analysts were aware without the FBI needing to intervene, it's pretty likely the UFC was aware as well. Also, Dana has several times refuted the claim of 100 plus fights flagged for suspicious betting activity. And while White is certainly in PR mode and to always be taken with a grain of salt, Ariel mentioned on his show that he also hadn't heard that yet. It doesn't mean it's wrong or the Herzog thing, just that it's been refuted and or unverified by others. Now, that said, Nate Wilcox, a reputable guy who has covered MMA for many years now, his outlet MMA Draw newsletter is claiming that the FBI has been tracking suspicious MMA bets since 2021 and that in the next 6 months they're ramping their investigation up considerably. They also claim specific referee assignments will be cross-referenced with suspicious activity, so it very well could be that everything Harry Mack has said will be proven true, but weighty claims need to be verified by multiple sources. That is not a knock on him, that's just best practices as a consumer of media. Another development that Mack has claimed is that the FBI has been to Factory X and seized phones and conducted interviews, something that has been directly refuted by Factory X's social media. Now, you might say, well, of course Factory X would deny it, and that is a reasonable position, as it is to think that investigators would be turning over every stone possible with a logical place to check being Dulgarian's gym. But with so much of the other info being difficult to verify with other sources or being refuted, again, it's just good to be cautious about what you confirm in a hotly developing story like this. The last bit of speculation is the Krause-Iridium connection to all of this. Of course, James Krause and several of his fighters were caught up in a similar scandal in late 2022.
They're gonna go to fucking federal prison. Federal fucking prison.
And Dana has confirmed that that investigation, which is still ongoing, mind you, has been now folded into this one. So all of it is being treated as one big case by the FBI, according to White. Where others are seeing connections, though, between the two cases could be potentially significant or just coincidence.
Who found Isaac Dulgarian many years ago? It's James Krause. James Krause is banned from the sport. Dulgarian goes to Factory X. Mark Montoya has a long-standing relationship, or did, with James Krause. Every single one of the fighters that has spoken up and retracted are Iridium Fighters, managed by Jason House. James Krause, managed by Jason House. Dulgarian, managed by Jason House. And people are starting to bring this up and ask questions regarding that.
There is no Carol in HR.
Regardless of whether all of these things are connected, the fact is people are seeking out these patterns. And that is what is so insidious about a scandal like this. Mixed martial arts could be destroyed as a sport just by the perception that we cannot trust what we're seeing anymore. Fans and bettors are combing through every relationship, every thread, every stoppage, every decision, any weird fight they can to determine whether or not something might fall into this potentially vast problem with the sport. I can't tell you how many accusations I've already seen on social media of refs, judges, fighters, the UFC, TKO, organized crime. Keep in mind, this scandal hit a week after the FBI announced arrests of prominent NBA figures related to a vast illegal sports betting scheme with 4 mafia families allegedly involved. So it's not hard to make that organized crime connection. And while we're clearly in a situation that needs to be taken seriously, it also has the potential to turn into a witch hunt if we're not careful, where we're seeing fight fixes on every bout that has even a slightly odd moment. Even Isaac Dulgarian himself. It should be kept in mind, there's no proof yet that he's done anything wrong. No smoking gun that proves that he did anything illegal. He's not been indicted. He's not shared his perspective on any of this directly with the public. All of this is ongoing, and likely will be ongoing for a very long time. The topic is hot right now, but if you're expecting a quick turnaround, not a single person from the ongoing James Krause scandal has been charged with anything in 3 years. And that situation was just as bad as this one, but everybody moved on when the story died down. Perhaps this Dulgarian situation has compounded the concern though, and this story won't just fade away as new information slows in the coming weeks and months. Regardless of whether this is some vast conspiracy or simply a few bad actors, it's clear now that there's incentive for fighters in low-interest, low-paying bouts to be targeted by parties who are willing to pay them far better than they're making early in their UFC career to take a dive in a fight that most people probably won't even be paying attention to. But any way you look at it, it is something the UFC has to get a hold of fast. There have been 3 such situations in the last decade where we know suspicious betting activity precipitated potentially thrown fights. Dulgarian Del Valle, Minner Norden Becca, and Bang Kuntz in 2015. In all 3 cases, the UFC handled it the same. They didn't pull the bouts, they warned parties involved, let the fight play out, then contacted authorities immediately afterwards. That might not be enough anymore. Whether this scandal is a turning point for the UFC is yet to be seen, but the longer these questions linger in the air, the more fans are going to question what they see in the cage on Saturday nights. Thank you so much for watching. A massive thanks to our channel members for their support. Like and subscribe for more situational breakdowns like this one, and have a great day.